Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fiction genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of 12 Monkeys. So in this episode, things are slightly okay between Jones and Ramsey, simply because Ramsey spared Deacon and brought him back. And essentially, she wants to use him to go to 1944 and find, get in contact and track down Lee and Cole so that basically they can be brought back because their tethers have been snapped. And so, the deal was if he does this and when he comes back, they'll drop everything. They won't hold any grudges again. They'll let him leave along with his son. And, it is very interesting because Jones has to put her faith in someone that she doesn't trust. She's lost faith in Ramsey ever since he, essentially went back in time and became a part of the 12 Monkeys. Became a part of that crew. But what I really liked in this episode, specifically, was kind of like maybe the beginning half of the episode is kind of a coinciding episode. It's basically showing you it shows you the events of the last episode. Obviously, it's kind of skipping around, but it shows you what went down in the last episode in a much faster pace, but it's also showing you, where Ramsey fit into that whole situation, what he was doing at the time he was supposed to track it into. It sucks for Ramsey. The moment he pops into 1944, what happens to him? He gets hit by a car. It's like, she didn't plan it, but on some level, it's like, I kind of feel like that was a middle finger from Jones. But, ended up tracking them down. I did because I kind of figured they'd kind of get arrested. Granted, the situation didn't go down the way it was. Basically led to Cole getting smacked around a little bit in the hotel room. And I did like the fact is, one of the detectives was talking to Cassie. It's like, so tell me what's going on, honey. And Cole was like, she's not honey. I'm honey. She's baby cakes. I'm like, that's so weird. And even though she didn't really say anything, you saw Cassie kind of crack a smile. It's just like, I do love the fact is, I guess in a situation like that, just Cole, that's usually his defense mechanism for stuff going down. It's just like, he kind of cracks jokes. So, but, we ended up having that detective, somewhat play an important role in this episode. Even though he got knocked out by Cole, he ends up, visiting the, the messenger, later on in the episode with Cole. He doesn't know, what Cole, and Cassie's deal is, but he knows that, they aren't necessarily the ones that, killed Tommy and his dad. But basically, they talk to the messenger. Obviously, that dude is completely lost in what's going down, but it's kind of explained that basically the 12 Monkeys have one purpose. They're killing time, essentially. Really, they're stopping time, but to do that, they have to kill the primaries, who, in this show, I kind of got it right, that they kind of bring balance to time. Really, they keep it going. This kind of comparison that they made is that they're like the gears of a clock. They keep like the gears of inside of a clock that keep it going. So that's what the primaries are. They see the past, present, and future. So, but essentially, we also found out that those time. I think I mentioned this. I was under the impression that time hits you all at once with those little time pockets created from the paradoxes in that happened in 1944 when they killed Tommy with a bone from his future body, but creating that paradox. But ended up changing everything into red force. That basically, like I said, I was under the impression it was like time happening all at once. But basically, those time pockets hit you and they age you 100 years. So, that's why you saw those bodies. You even saw the weapons that were kind of a little rusty and decayed a little bit. So, I did like in this episode that, we see Jones kind of going a little stir crazy because she spent so much time. She was under the impression that she understood time travel. That time, she kind of had a very narrow-minded, viewpoint of time. And we even have Jennifer kind of explaining to her, it's like, time doesn't work like that. Time isn't just straight. There are multiple levels to it. It's just like the only way I like the comparison she made is basically like an ant that's in line. basically the ant only knows of three ants' existence: the ant in front of it, and the ant behind it, and it itself. It won't really know about the existence of the other ants until it removes itself from the line and is able to see the full picture. Basically saying that Jones never seen the full picture. The time is a lot more complex. But she ended up figuring all this out. Jennifer helped her see all this by having her eat one of those drink one of the leaves that was kind of turned into a drink form. And that's kind of interesting. Is that because it's like, how do you replicate? Like, how did that do what it did? It seemed like it kind of has like a bit of a psychedelic effect or something, but it's like, because basically they ended up inside of her mind, we see her like older Jennifer as like Jennifer from 2016 rather than looking like Jennifer from 2044. But we see her and Jones in a place that essentially they hear some like monkey sounds. Essentially, it was Jennifer saying that like, okay, we're at when in time we are is where when monkeys switched over to being humans, essentially. So it's like, what is that like? Is that supposed to replicate what she hears and sees? Because it's like, as a primary, like, they always kind of have, like, time rushing through their minds and stuff like that. We had that, whole part of the episode. But because, Jones was kind of unraveling a little bit just because it's like she doesn't understand what's going on. She's basically, like, yelling at her fellow coworkers, telling them just like, okay, you need to keep looking at things, seeing what's changing, because like we have absolutely no idea how this works, what the causality is still in effect, like whether changes in the past are really going to like having the effect, are those changes actually going to carry over, or is time kind of so broken that it's not going to. And then basically you see the skies getting all red and stormy. It's just essentially the comparison they make, I keep saying that word. Stop saying, comparing. I need to stop saying that. Essentially, time is basically when it stops. Basically, birth and death are going to happen instantaneous. It's like all of time, kind of like what I was saying about the pocket times. Basically, time's going to happen all at once. Essentially, that's the 12 Monkeys plan. It's like, what that really means, I don't get why you want mass extinction like that. Which basically means that, initially, Ramsey's always had his reservations because he's always wanted to make sure his son existed. But even he, in this situation, has to help, because if he doesn't help stop them, essentially it's going to lead to all time breaking down, and, none of them are going to exist. It's basically going to end with everything being destroyed. But I guess that's what it kind of is. I guess it is, in a sense, possibly a reset switch. It's like, what do you benefit from a constant cycle of life and death happening simultaneously? Like, what does that do for you? And it kind of gets brought up in this episode about the witness, because we had that messenger about to kill Cole, but she's like, oh, I can't. The messenger had spoken. Before I said Cole might have been the body that started the whole virus thing, but it also makes me wonder. Now I'm kind of thinking, like, what if Cole's actually the witness? So what if like some version of time led to some events in time led to Cole becoming the witness, but because we have things changing in this timeline, because time is supposed to be consistent. It's like, okay, things are meant to go this way, and that's all there is to it. But obviously there have been changes to it. Like, for instance, Ramsey isn't supposed to be alive, but he is, and even Cole himself is changing. So what if Cole is the witness? Because maybe that's why he's not supposed to kill Cole. I mean, because like I said, Cole is important in some shape or form. So it's like, those are my two current running theories. I never really thought about him being the witness. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But it's like, this episode definitely got me thinking about maybe he is the witness. And basically, maybe Cole's battling against himself, is battling against what he's always been in other timelines. But this specific timeline, he's a different person. And it's kind of like, oh, you have all these different timelines where it's like, okay, he's coming to fight battling against the 12 monkeys, fighting to become, what will eventually leading to him becoming a witness. He's done that in all these different timelines, but in this specific one, he ended up fighting that quote-unquote destiny/fate. But then again, at the end of season 1, we ended up finding out that, supposedly from the redheaded lady, that Ramsey died and Cole was kind of never heard of again, was essentially how time was supposed to work. So I doubt, the fact that she phrased it like that makes me think maybe he's not. But no, like I said, it's just an interesting theory. We also had a moment in this episode where we had Ramsey and Cassie kind of talking to each other, and Ramsey's essentially telling her to kind of forgive Cole, because basically, like, you kind of hate Cole. Like, Cole is a very loyal person, loyal to a fault, actually. When he puts his trust and put forth the effort for a person, he goes all in. It's all in or it's nothing. And basically saying that's the situation with Cassie, and he beats himself up constantly, whether, that, because he's so sad, he's so mad at himself for Cassie turning into the way she did. Essentially, it's like, it's my choices that made me who I am anyway. I mean, she kind of brought that up last episode, but essentially she's like, I'm not mad at him, but she's, she said, I don't hate him, but on some level, maybe she holds some resentment towards him. But Ramsey's like, forgive him just like he forgave me for all the shit I did. So it's kind of interesting to see them, because we've never really had, up till now, we've never had like just Ramsey and Cassie. I mean, to a certain extent, I mean, there's always been other people. This is the first time having like a one-on-one interaction, because essentially Ramsey's like, I know you're going to hate me. I know that's never going to change because of everything I've done. But he's like, I don't care. I'm fine with that. We even have at the end, nearing the end of the episode, where it's like, okay, everyone's arguing, Ramsey and Cassie, Jones, the whole situation. Everyone's blaming each other for everything. And Cole's the one that kind of has to bring the peace. It's like, you know what? Forget that. What's important is we're here now. Like, none of us expected to be where we are right now. But basically, we have to bury the past and work together to stop things from escalating even more, because time is going to end if we don't do what we need to do. We also ended up finding out about the messenger, which is something that, got brought up earlier in the episode, which is very interesting, because basically messengers apparently can't have children, which makes me wonder, how does she have a child? Not unless her son was adopted or wherever, but apparently she's like, I can't have children. Maybe that's just something that kind of like fixed itself over time. But it brought up the fact is that essentially she was going to let Ramsey go, because she was surprised. She's like, okay, your life cycle is supposed to end, but you're still here. Basically, Ramsey, she was like, okay, you're doing this all for your son. And she's like, because she said, basically, she's grown up hearing the story about, the fact is Ramsey's doing all this for his son. So it's kind of inspirational. It's kind of interesting when you look at it in perspective, like hearing all your life, like his story as a traveler. It's like hearing his story about how, like, his love for his son is the reason why he's done all this. It's kind of interesting that his story is almost like a fairy tale / legend. An interesting thing in this episode too, we also find out when he was at the hospital, basically it's like, oh, you have arthritis, even though we've never seen someone with arthritis for someone as your age, because he has it in his like body, because they were just also noting the fact is that he heals very quickly. But I was like, oh yeah, I forgot, because of the whole time thing and the injection, Ramsey ended up aging slower than anyone else, because really Ramsey's I don't feel like doing math in my. He's definitely up there. He's an old man. He just looks young. It does make you wonder why he doesn't why isn't he more brittle? Maybe his bones reflect his age to a certain extent, but it's like, you feel like, taking enough of a beating, he would have just being an old man on the inside, like getting hit by a car. I'm surprised it didn't break, just shatter his entire skeleton in his body, didn't just completely shatter it. But I don't know, maybe it works a little differently than that. But the point I was getting to, finding out the messenger has a son, and that son ends up being Lavender Dude, the dude who goes around killing people and putting lavender down. That's why he does like that. It's not that it's not the messengers were necessarily it's kind of weird. The messengers were inspired by him, which is because he was inspired by his mother, who was a messenger. So it's like he helped bring up, because the messengers exist in 2016 as babies. So basically, he kind of watched his mom grow up a little bit, depending on how long he ended up living after that. But it's like, because he's a pretty older gentleman, but it was like, wasn't it like 1971 we saw that? So the moment he came in with the hat and I saw the flowers, I was like, it's a Lavender Dude. Turns out it is Lavender Dude. We also have Jennifer kind of turning herself in, because basically she wants a cure. She wants to deal with all the voices in her head she's done. Which I guess, no matter how far she ran, she couldn't escape this. There is no escaping this, because as we see that she is primary, she is very important and special. So it just makes you wonder, how much does future Jennifer know in comparison to present day Jennifer, which is something that's coming up in this episode. Next episode, it seems like they're bringing present Jennifer into this whole situation, because it's like, well, it's not like they're necessarily bringing her into it. They're trying to protect her as a primary, because it's also like, well, like I said, I thought it was, like I've mentioned, what was it, like the first episode I brought it up, that or the second episode brought it up, the fact is that, oh yeah, like it's interesting that Jennifer plays a heavy role in this. She played a heavy role in the first one, but I feel like she's playing an even heavier role this season. But I don't know. I'm kind of fine with it. I don't mind seeing more Jennifer. She's very out there and wacky and crazy, and I really like that, because you're kind of seeing, like, she's been, to me, there's a lot of previews for the 12 Monkeys that kind of shows a lot of it focusing on Jennifer, so. But when it's all said and done, it does make me wonder, it's like, how do you fight a situation like this? Because how will they track them down? It's like, oh, we'll do it one piece at a time. It's like, but where do you even start? The few messengers that did go through time, it's like, how do you pinpoint where exactly they went? Because literally they're going around killing primaries, but it's like, how do you know who's a primary and who isn't? I mean, I guess that's the whole reason why they're bringing in Jennifer, because maybe she'll be able to help identify all the primaries. Because it's like, because there's no telling exactly how many primaries have to die before time finally, breaks. But, yeah. Very, very interesting episode. Well, that's really all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.